Welcome back to Down the Road. A lot of things happened after COVID. A lot of things changed. There's a lot of people that worked from home that aren't going back into the workplace necessarily. There's a lot of people that work from home that decided that's where I will work from. And there's a lot of people who said, if you're going to bring me back into work, then if you're going to keep me, I don't want to work 5 days a week. Well, Mary Elizabeth Elkordy is founder and president of Elkordy Global Strategies. Let's bring Mary in and get a chance to visit with her. Mary, good to have you coming down the road with us.
Thank you for having me on.
Let's do this first, Mary. Let's explain to people what Elkordy Global Strategies is.
Sure. So we are a full service PR firm. We do media relations, digital marketing, social media branding, and podcast production.
Okay. So everything that many people aren't ready to do, whether it's a startup business, an existing business, or quite frankly, in my life before, a politician, you can help out with all of that.
That's right.
Okay. You took a real look at where you were post-COVID and pre-COVID. What did you find out that what the workplace holds right now?
I think a lot of people are looking at flexibility, and I think people have noticed that they have a lot more options than they realize in terms of how, where, and what type of work that they're doing, especially coming out of COVID, where you realize that no job is safe. So you may as well be doing something that you want to do, or if you're not sure about what you want to do yet, maybe reduce the type of work that you're doing to freelance and part-time instead of doing that 40-hour work week for those types of people to figure out what you do want to do with your time.
So will that ever change? Will it ever go back? Now that people had that taste, for lack of a better way of putting it, of what it was like to not be at the behest of the employer, but be able to kind of set their own rules. Do you think you ever see that going back to the way it was before COVID?
I think for some people it makes more sense because being a freelancer, I was one myself at one point, it's very stressful. And when you don't, people like having that certainty of a paycheck every 2 weeks or every 15 days, depending how your company does it. And being a freelancer, yes, you can technically make more money, but clients can leave at any given point and then your income goes away. And then you also don't have some of these benefits like healthcare and 401k and these other nice things. Now there are other companies who are supplementing that. One's called Solaris. But, we always, think that someone should be analyzing their situation and making the right risk adjustments based on where their life is at. So if you have savings and you set yourself up, even if it's not a ton of savings, but enough so that you can start freelancing and start to build your side hustle as your main hustle, then that's great. But if you're someone who's a typical person who lives paycheck to paycheck, a full-time job is really needed so that you can build that side hustle wealth so that you can start your own company. And that's sort of what I did. So.
Okay. So, Mary, is this gender specific? When you look at this in the study that you looked at, are more women doing this than men?
So a lot more women are leaning to some of the benefits of having, remote work and flexible remote work of capabilities. Our team, we have single moms, we have people who have autistic children, we have people who have multiple children or homeschool their children. And so having the ability to still have a meaningful career with growth opportunities while not being stuck to, the technical 40-hour work week for themselves by being a contractor or a part-time worker, I think has given people a lot more opportunities. But also for some women, they also just really like remote work because they can still have a full-time job somewhere else where they can really, have that growth or be able to be really a part of their children's life. Like having somewhere like, we're in North Dakota or even in LA, where driving is a big part of the commute process to going to any job. Having that extra 30 minutes, hour, 2 hours, depending on where you're working, both in the morning and morning drive and PM drive can really change your time with your family, with your kids, or doing these other passion things on the side that you normally would not have had the time to do because you spent so much time commuting and to just go to a job. instead of
Okay.
just being,
Oh, I'm sorry, Mary. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
oh, no, it's
you know,
fine.
you take a look at what you're getting at, and it takes a different skill set. It takes motivation. As someone who manages a number of employees and has most of my professional life, I'm not convinced that all of them would succeed if I trusted them to give me 40 hours from home. Uh, what are you finding out when it comes to that? I realize we've talked here about employees and what they would like. What are employers saying about this?
So from where I sit, at least, and from what, others and seeing the different stories that are going on out there in research, it's just making sure that how you're managing your employees is just a little bit different than you are in an office. You can't just go come up to someone's desk and ask them how they are doing, or have a micromanager moment and see what they're doing, right? You have to have a better communication styles, but also making sure that the technology that you're using also helps you implement some of these policies. So, for instance, we use a time tracking app. We have like Asana for project management tools to make sure that people are meeting deadlines. And if they're not, our managers are aware of it, right? And having a clear communication system with each person on our team, and the internal teams having weekly meetups. It's never going to be perfect, whether you're in an office or whether you're remote. I mean, even in office, there are some people who are less productive. And if you don't have a micromanaging environment, right, which people shouldn't have, but sometimes people kind of slide under the radar, right? As we've all experienced in office work settings, even with some of the smartest colleagues that are sitting next to you. So I think it's just about having smart processes that are understanding of people, that are empathetic of people, but also ensure that you get the job done, that really help assist you making sure that people are most effective with their time. And then sometimes, if you notice someone's, the time tracking isn't just to monitor people's time. It's just also to see, like, is this person at capacity? Do they have time for more work? Do they need help because they're taking a long time working on a specific task that should only take about this amount of time, and maybe it's a training issue, right? And so it kind of helps you also identify areas to work on with your team.
So, when you look hard at how this shakes out as an employer, as someone who really takes a step back, I'm not convinced that a 40-hour work week is a good thing. I'm not convinced that when it comes to keeping employees, and let me give you an example of what I'm getting at. Just having the employee, having them there, being able to physically talk to them face to face, pick up on their body language, the other things that go along with it. I'm not convinced that as an employer that would be a good thing to give away. So, but I'm afraid. I'm afraid of losing employees. I'm afraid of right now, if three good people walked up in a very small shop that I manage, I'd hire them tomorrow. And the best example I can give is we're in the advertising business, and you can't listen to the radio station or watch the TV without seeing commercials or advertisements asking for employees. It's just constant. People are looking to hire. And so I guess I'm not convinced that a 40-hour work week should be crammed into 4 days. And I'm curious what you think about that.
I completely agree. I don't think, a 32-hour work week that people are pushing for is realistic for both the employee standpoint, but also the employer standpoint. As an employee, you still have the same level of responsibilities, to my knowledge, as if you're working 5 days a week. It's just compressed to 4 days. And unless you're managing, you have some better system of managing your employees, it's going to lead to more burnout with those employees, even if it's less amount of time. Because the issue with burnout is not just about the time you're spending. It comes from bad culture or workload, work-life balance. So yes, you may only be working 4 days, but if you're working 10, 12 hours for 4 days a week, that still takes a toll on the person and the body, right? And if it's an industry that usually doesn't call for that, there's certain industries where that's expected, right? Like nurses, if you are a firefighter, right? But you kind of sign up for that when you take on those positions. But if you're in a position where you're used to a normal 8-hour cadence day, and now you're cramming 5 days of work into 4, that makes it really ineffective. And then also a 5-day work week. We all know Friday is usually a little bit lighter day, right? Like towards the end of the day, people start getting ready for the weekend. They get excited, as they should. But now if you're moving that to Thursday, people are going to start doing that Thursday, right? Which means you really have 3.5 days of like actual effective work, right? Where people are like really in it and not just thinking about the weekend, even though they're still doing work. Any human being gets excited, right?
Yep.
So I think there's also that as well. I think, there are ways that people can help with work-life balance. It does not mean reducing the work week, because also from the business side, like if you do service industry like myself, if you're reducing the amount of time that we're pitching or that we're doing work to 4 days instead of 5 days, you're actually reducing the amount of output we have for our clients, right? And so if we're asking for a client to spend the same amount, or if we're told that we need to still spend the same amount on our employees, but they're expected to work 32 hours, right? And let's say they have legislation that makes it's just 32 hours, then you're also reducing the output of work. So then you can't make the same amount of money you were making to be able to pay them salaries that they currently have, right? And so there's a lot of, negatives I see. I mean, as a former employee in my life, a 4-day work week sounds awesome, right? Who wouldn't want a 3-day weekend every weekend? But if you think about the practicality of having the same level of responsibility or, from a business standpoint, you're spending the same amount of money, but you're not charging as much as you are to clients, or have the opportunity, or not able to get as much output for the same amount because you have less days to do the work, it really impacts it. Because I mean, anytime there's a 3-day weekend and we come back on Tuesday, or, we leave Thursday, you can always feel how much more stressful it is those first couple of days that you're back, because you're catching up on work. Mm-hmm. And usually that Friday is really to really set the tone for the next week for a lot of jobs.
Yeah, totally understand and totally agree, I might add. Mary Elkordy, she is the president of Elkordy Global Strategies. I think you got to check out her work. Just go find it, and you might find that she's just the person to help you out. Mary, thanks for coming on with us. I appreciate it.